design for AI is basically all about simplifying the interaction between the human and the machine, right? You want it to be as smooth as possible. You don't want the machines to be making mistakes. You don't want the human to be getting frustrated all the time. And so some examples of UX for AI are listed here. There's text and voice-based AI, so Alexa and Google Home. For those of you who probably have heard about these products already, are more speech-based, while like the Slack bot and other chatbots are text-based. And then you also have the LinkedIn Smart Replies. Not sure if you guys have seen those, but in your messages, it's not a bot that's talking to you, it's another person, but there is an artificial intelligence suggesting ways that you can reply to the person that's actually sending you the message. So I'm just going to go into a few steps to consider when you're designing for AI. So first of all, you really want to get to know what type of personality your AI is going to have. You want to treat it as a person, right? So what does it care about? You know, how is it going to sound? What's the tone going to sound like if it's speech-based, right? Or even if it's text-based? Like, how do you want it to come off to people? And a really good way to do this is to create a persona for your AI. So this is basically describing your AI as if it were a person. You bring this AI to life in order to really get into the nitty-gritty of how you want your product to act, how you want it to respond. So what do they look like? You want to give it a picture, whether it's an illustration or an actual photo. What do they normally say? Are they sarcastic? Are they serious? Things, characteristics that you would give people, human beings, you want to give to your AI. And you want to figure out how it's going to respond to that activation. So with Alexa, the little blue light on the top comes on, right? Whether it's an Echo or any of the other ones. Google Home, the lights come on. Right? So how is it going to respond? And you want to make sure that it is appropriate in terms of who's going to be using your product. So if you're designing some type of AI for someone who may be blind, it might make more sense, instead of to have something visual like a light come on, to have an auditory response. So once you get those few points out of the way, you want to design a clear starting point, right, with clear options. So text-wise, you know, depending on your audience, you might want to give them some prompts. It's just like, okay, this is your first time using this product, this AI product. You know, maybe you should try saying this. So on this side, you can say, tell me about your day. What's the traffic? You know, play music. It's giving you options of things that you can actually do. Whereas on the other side, it actually just kind of gives you a mini tutorial. You know, this is who I am. This is what I do. You can customize me this way. How can I help you? So you want to make sure that people understand how to use your AI product when they're using it for the first time. So for this example, it's like a kitchen bot, right? It's some type of kitchen AI. The context is in the kitchen. It does kitchen things, right? For the scenario, in your kitchen, what do you do, right? You might be cooking, you might be cleaning, you might be eating, a number of other things that you can do in the kitchen. So here we have cooking, washing dishes, and eating. And within those different scenarios, you have needs as a user. You know, if I'm cooking, I want to know the recipe of something. Or I want to know how many calories are in this specific type of food. And so understanding the needs, which are within the scenarios, which are within the context of your AI, is most important, so you can design the types of questions that your product is going to answer. So yeah, so if you need a recipe, how do I cook pasta? That's an example of a question that your AI should be able to answer. You want to make sure that your AI is outputting the data that your users are asking for. So, for example, when you're asking about the traffic right now on Crenshaw, there's a place, a time, and a traffic condition that you want to output to that user. They're called entities. So when your AI hears Crenshaw, now traffic condition, it knows that those are the things that it needs to output to you in order to answer your question successfully as a user. Here at the bottom, if your user asks, hey, what's the news today? It's up to you as the designer of this product to figure out what exactly that user wants to hear. There's a ton of different ways that you can present the news to somebody. There's international news, local news, national news, like what do they want? So if I was to be a user of your AI product and I want to know the news today, how do you think you could go about deciding what information to give me? I personally think, and it's definitely a common thought for other user experience personnel as well, user experience is not just for design, right? You should apply it to business, to development, engineering, right? So customer service is within business, but poor user experience and customer service can really kill your product, which is why Amazon is one of the top e-commerce companies in the world, partly because their customer service is really good. And so it's really important to make sure that you insert user experience into all facets of your product and your business, not just in design. And also, I recently read an article about making sure to acknowledge privilege and inherent bias when you're conducting your research and interpreting your research results, and making sure that you're being the best UX researcher that you can be in regard to acknowledging the privilege that you may have as whoever you are, and the privileges that your users may not have, whoever they are.